everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I'm your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We will give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with the 2023 NCAA Men's Ice Hockey National Champion, head coach Rand Pecknold. Rand just finished his 29th season as the Quinnipiac men's ice hockey team head coach. In addition to Quinnipiac's team during his career, Coach Rand Pecknold became the 2023 head coach of the United States national junior team, has earned the Tim Taylor Award, which is given to the ECAC Coach of the Year 5 times, and has won a silver medal at the IHF World Championship as the assistant coach with the 2018 U.S. men's national team. Prior to becoming the head coach for Quinnipiac University, Rand Pecknold was an assistant coach at his alma mater, Connecticut College. Hello, Coach Rand Pecknold. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Hi, Olivia. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited.
I'm super excited to have you on, and I've been looking forward to this episode for so long. So to start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Rand Pecknold?
Well, that's a tough question. We just won a national championship. That was just an amazing moment for me personally, for my team. I think for Quinnipiac University, and then probably even more than that, the everything that's come, the blitz that's come in addition to that. Right, I just rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange this morning, which was amazing. I was, oh, that's pretty cool. I got there. It was incredible. I couldn't believe how much better it was than I thought, throwing a first pitch at Fenway. So there's all these things have come into play. But to me, like success, I'm a big about staying in the moment and trying to achieve things on a regular basis. In fact, I talked to my team about a lot about, we play to our identity and you'll get rewarded in March, and you play to our identity, we'll get rewarded in April with a national championship. And we did. So I guess that's a big reason how I would define success.
And I think that's really important is staying in the moment. I talk about a lot in the show and to people I coach is it's great to have goals, but once you're reaching those goals, you have to savor those moments as well. You can't always be looking for the next thing. And it's really important to keep that in mind so that you don't miss those moments and those memories and those authentic and vulnerability aspects to grow in your career as well, or in your personal life.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I preach is just let's focus on the process. You can't get 6-7 months ahead of yourself and say, I want to win a national championship. It's not going to work that way. It's about the process. It's about every day. We're coming to the rink. We're lifting. We're training. We're eating healthy. We're taking care of our bodies. We're sleeping better. We're staying away that as much as we can, or the kids are, from the partying, because that's going to take away from what you want to do. We talk about that a lot, but again, they have to be self-driven with that. But I think process, and from a day to day or an hour to hour or even shift to shift, I think that's where a lot of people will have success. I think if you're trying to just, in the end, hey, this is what I want to do, and you don't really focus on doing little things to get to that point, it usually doesn't work for you.
And I think that's really important. And sometimes, getting to your end goal opens up a whole nother realm of opportunities and moments to cherish. Like you started saying, you rang the bell this morning and, you've gotten to throw the first pitch at Fenway Park. What has all those moments that have been kind of unexpected since winning the championship been like for you? And how have you gone through that? Because I know it's been a lot on your plate.
Yeah, it's chaotic right now. It's all good. It's great. I'm trying to do everything that I can to maximize the exposure of Quinnipiac hockey, because it's great for recruiting, and really Quinnipiac University. That's why we have teams. That's why we have athletics. PR. But it's been a lot. It's been kind of a whirlwind. But there's been some other neat things along the way. I did the Spit and Chicklets, which I thought was really cool. That podcast. I mean, they have like 7 million listeners, and I can't even imagine or even grasp like the feedback I've got. I probably had 100 people have hit me. Hey, listen, I listen to obviously I guess I did a good job on it. I didn't know that afterwards. But that's obviously going to help our recruiting and stuff down the road. But it's been an enjoyable run, and eventually we'll slow down. I'll be able to catch my breath, and we can just enjoy the summer a little bit, enjoy the natty that we have. But right now, I'm just trying to stay afloat.
And I think, when you talk about you maybe not in the moment knowing the reach that you have, whether it's in a sports aspect with the alumni that have been a part of your journey, you've been a coach with Quinnipiac for 29 years. That alumni reach that have watched your career specifically has
Right.
been so big, and watching the team throughout the years as well. You get really connected to the team. So there's a lot of great things that come with the exposure that you were just talking about, and not knowing. I've talked to some of the guys, and I've been, I was at the Frozen Four with you and the team, and everyone was like, who listens to the show that was there, was like, is Rand going to be on your show? Please tell me Rand's going to be on your show. And so when we confirmed it, and I was like, yeah, guys, stay tuned. They're like, I am so excited. And they've all already marked their calendars for when this episode drops. They're like, this is going to be the best thing. But
Yeah.
I think that shows to you as well of what the legacy you've brought in your time, and the brotherhood and the sisterhood. What our guests don't realize is I was a part of Rand's team. I was the manager of the Quinnipiac ice hockey team for both the men and women during my 4 years at the university. And so I've gotten to see firsthand the leadership Rand takes with the team, and what, not just within the team community, but on a greater scale, what that has been like, and the legacy you leave on the guys who come out and want to continue being part of it. What for you, Coach Pecknold, has been the biggest, I think, importance for you to raise the guys to the next level, not just on the ice, but off the ice as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the one thing we talk a lot about at Quinnipiac is just commitment to excellence. Whether it's on the ice, in the weight room, in the classroom. If we're gonna go, do a volunteer work, we're gonna go, read to first graders, or we're gonna go down to Yale New Haven and go in the cancer ward or whatever. Like, we just want our guys to be great at everything they do. And I think if you do that, you're gonna get rewarded in life. And certainly they're not perfect, but they're pretty good. And a big thing for us too is, we recruit high character. Really, a lot of the kids are elite character. Not every kid, but we try to get as many as we can, and then it just makes our life easier trying to coach them. The buy-in was fantastic this year. We're playing teams with more talent than us in Ohio State and Michigan and Minnesota, and we're beating those teams and winning a national championship. But it's a good example of sometimes culture is more important than talent, and really culture is character. And so a lot of those came through this year, and just excited to finally get over that hump. This is our third national championship game. We'd lost the first two. So to finally get the national championship for Quinnipiac is just it's a great thrill.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting. I was telling someone the other day about that journey of, it was 3 championships. You've been there as a coach 3 times. And I said, ironically, the first time was in 2013, right after I committed to Quinnipiac and becoming a manager. And then I said, the second time I was a manager in 2016, we ended up going to Tampa and playing, and I was a manager during that time. And I said, and then this last time when you just played, it was back in Tampa. So that home feeling of where we were the last
Yep.
time. And I got to watch it from a alumni team standpoint. So each moment for me, getting to watch you bring the guys to that spot and coach them through that journey has been great, especially this past time, because I know how hard you've worked and the team has worked to get to this point. But for you, what was it like being back in Tampa right after the last time you were in the national championship? It's the same arena, the same overall schedule of how everything's laid out. What was it like being back there and going, okay, we're going to do it this time?
Yeah. I mean, I people have asked me a lot, like, did you change anything? And I mean, I think like anybody would do, like, I've matured or adapted as I've gone. And it was 7 years ago when we were there the last time, but you're always changing, you're always evolving as a coach, as a leader. So, I've definitely just changed in general. But going back, the first thing I wanted to make sure is, the Frozen Four semifinal, like we've been in two of those games and we won both those games.
Mhm.
And so those are really hard games to win. And we're playing Michigan, depending on the poll, number 2 or number 3 team in the country. And I wanted to make sure I didn't change enough that I could win that game. And then what are we going to do now to get over the hump and win the national championship? And I thought as a staff, we did a really good job of getting on our players to we use the term block out the noise. So you're going down there, you're really going down there to play 2 hockey games. And, we had some players on our team with, 20, 30 relatives and girlfriends and this guy, everybody, grandmother, that was crazy. And they all want a piece of you. And it's like, guys, if you're going to let that happen, you're not going to focus on the hockey game. The other thing it was like 92 degrees every day down there. So,
Mhm.
that heat is really dehydrating. So we had to get on our guys. Like, we're not going to the pool. We're not going to the beach. We're not taking the pirate ship out, right? You saw the pirate ship in the bay that takes you around for a little spin. We're not doing any of that stuff. Like, it was a business trip. And I thought our guys did a really good job of that. I can't speak for the other 3 teams in the Frozen Four, how if they were good or bad at that, but I can tell you we were great at that. I think I covered it a little bit the first 2 times, but I think we hammered it a lot better this time. And I think we were in better position to win on Saturday because we did that.
Yeah, and it was interesting for me because the first time I went with the team, it was definitely a great experience being part of the team, but I just started my professional career working with professional teams, right? So I had some exposure. This time, after being a part of professional teams for 6 years and working with athletes, when people came up to me, I had a very much of that mindset of I've been in the industry and understand how games can work so much that there's so many moving pieces and you really have to think about those moving pieces. Like you said, the not going to the pool, the canceling out the noise and the importance of that. And it was funny because the first night it was Michigan and I was talking to people and they're like, well, who do you think is going to win in advance? And I said, well, obviously, I'm going to cheer for Quinnipiac. That's my team. Like, what are you talking
Yeah,
about?
absolutely.
But I said, at the end of the day, whatever game it was, either of the semifinals or the championship game, it comes down to whether the men could cancel out the noise and anything can happen because I've been at enough playoff games for the NFL, basketball games where you can have an amazing season and then the ultimate game comes up and guys just aren't prepared for that. Like you said, your family's there, the girlfriends, everyone wants to be wrapped up in the moment. Everyone wants to be there with you. And then all the lights hit. And you never know what that can impact within you, your nervousness, everything like that, that can change the game. So for you, the day of, you go into the arena, it's the championship game you're playing. How did you make sure the guys really focused on the game and not the crowd and all the other noises? Because there was definitely a shift in that game. You can
Right.
feel the shift that was
Right.
occurring, um, especially as the game transcended. So how did you make sure
Yeah,
you
I think
kept
I
that?
think a lot of what we did well as a coaching staff, we did before that game, before that day. I mean, we definitely talked to them again that day, but I think you had to set the table to get to that point. Like, one of the things we talk about all season long is adversity, right? It comes in all shapes and sizes. It comes at different times. It might not just be in a hockey game. It might be just in your life. Something's going on in your life, and we talk a lot about how to handle adversity and attacking adversity instead of, woe is me. I spilt the milk. You're like, you spilled the milk, clean it up. Let's go. And it's an attack mode. It's a mindset. And I think we did that well all year long so that when we get in these pressure packed moments, and adversity hits, guys don't go into panic mode. Now, we were nervous to start the game. I didn't think we were nervous at all against Michigan. I thought against Minnesota, we were a little nervous. Pucks were kind of hopping on our sticks. Guys were a little, amped up, maybe a little too much. But we settled in a little bit. But again, we didn't panic. And we
Mhm.
worked ourselves out of that early adversity. And then we were down 2-0. And again, there was no panic. There's no panic on the bench, no panic in between periods. And then we find a way to battle back and make it 2-1. And then, scored with, what was it, 2.5 minutes or 2:40 left to tie it. But
Mhm.
again, I don't think we do that without handling our adversity. And a lot of that was how we coached the team starting in September. We just talk a lot. I think if you're going to be a good coach, a good leader, you need to set your players up, or your employees, or whoever it is, your teammates up, right? You got to set them up to be ready to succeed when it's going to get in tough situations. I thought we did a good job of that.
I definitely thought you did a great job of that. And you can see it. Like you said, you guys were a little nervous in the beginning, and you can, from someone who really knows the team, you can kind of see that, but they were handling it well. And then some calls were being made where even I was like, oh no, like it's more against Quinnipiac. They should be doing that towards Minnesota too. But what was interesting was you guys found your groove. And like you said, it's making those pressure point moments, that adversity, not come over everything else. So you guys were getting in your groove. You were nervous in the beginning, which is better. You'd rather be in any high pressure situation, walk in a little nervous and then find your groove and be calm. Whereas Minnesota felt the pressure as you guys started. They weren't expecting you to make the moves you were making. And once you started making them and you started scoring, they felt that pressure and it didn't help them. And it's interesting to see the flip on how both teams handled it. But for you, you talk about adversity, no matter the situation. How have you personally trained yourself throughout your career to handle those adversity moments where, you can say something, or, you want your point to be come across well and not misunderstood?
Yeah, I mean, I think just in life in general, it's really how you want to attack a day. How you want to attack your life. And this, right, the whole adage of, you take a glass of water and is it half full, is it half empty, right? I mean, there's a lot of half empty people right now, and I always try to be it's half full, and I'm glad I have that half glass of water. And you can use that in a million different things, right? But it could be anything in life that you deal with, and you have to find a way, I think, to attack adversity, to fight through things, to be successful in life. And it happens in our daily lives. It's, oh, my car's low on gas and I got to get my daughter to field hockey. What am I? Well, you know what? I can complain about it, or I'm just like, you know what? I got to deal with it. How much time? How am I going to solve this problem? And we have so many little curveballs we get sent every day in our daily life. There's small things, and I think how you attack that and how you handle that, it's gonna lead to whether you're successful or not. I know it's small, but those small little things will add up. And so I try to live my life that way, and I try to teach our players to live our life that way. It's not easy. I mean, they're still young men, and some of them are definitely overthinkers. I get on them at times. I'll sit them out like, you overthink everything. Like, I know, coach. Sometimes it's just like, stop overthinking and just go play. And that can just be with life in general too. Sometimes you just have to, go out and live life and not overthink every little thing.
And I think that's so important to think about, is that all those little blocks, all those little moments play into how you approach situations and how you come out of it, right? Like the gas example you just listed, that's a very small thing most of the time. You don't want your car to stop working when you're on the highway, right?
Right.
So it can be a great big thing, but at the end of the day, how you look at everyday simple tasks play a role in how you look at the bigger picture, and they all go into each other. And for you, how do you look for, when you start the program, really when a season ends? Because I know you really never stop. You keep
Right.
going as a coach. How do you hit the refresh button and then start to move those blocks to get your goals of how the guys are performing as the season goes on?
Yeah, I mean, well, this year's a little different because we won the national championship. This was completely different than any other year. I think I backed off my players. I let them enjoy it. This is once in a lifetime achievement. Hopefully twice in a lifetime. Hopefully three times. Well, they'd love to win it again, but I wanted to make sure they really embraced it and enjoyed it. But now I think we're about 22, 23 days out. Like, I'll probably get them in this week and like, all right, guys, we need to start working it next year. In the past, now in other years, I give them like a week off. I don't want to see them. They don't want to see me. And then it's like, all right, what are we doing here? Let's get into the weight room. Let's get focused. We do our end of the year meetings one-on-one with each player to kind of map out what's their plan for the spring, what's their plan for the summer, what do they need to work on. I also, in those meetings, I want to make sure that there's accountability. I usually have them come in the meeting with their list of I always say, hey, prioritize. Give me 3 things or 4 things you need to work to get better at. And I want that because sometimes there's a disconnect. Like they'll come in with 3 things and I've got 3 completely different things. And right away, I'm like, wait a second, I just had this kid for a full season or for 2 seasons or 3 seasons. And I've told him my list a million times and he's thinking it's something else. So I think that's really important to have accountability if you're going to get better in life at anything. You need to you need to hold yourself accountable. But this year's been a little different, but we're at that point. It's Monday now. I'm going to get them in Wednesday and start dropping the hammer a little bit. We need to figure this out and start focusing on next year.
How do you handle those moments of accountability that you just brought up, where as a coach, a leader within the team, right, you have a different list than what your players might have? And that can transcend to a leader within an organization and your employee. I think it's great having those review meetings, no matter who you are or who it might be with in your life. It's always good to check in. But what happens when those check in moments kind of go south? When they're
Yep.
different.
Yeah. Well, then I know we got a problem. Then I know there's a disconnect. Does it happen a lot? No, but it's sometimes interesting when players come in and we've talked about the same thing over and over again. Like maybe somebody's not playing a lot. How do I get more ice time? These are the 3 things you need to work on, and I tell them over and over again. And then they come to me and they give me 3 different things. Well, I know we've got a problem.
Mhm,
And I think the best way to do is you just address it. You're honest with them. You tell them your list. I'll tell them, hey, we've got a disconnect. I've brought this up over the years. I might even go back and pull like some of the video work that we did with them. Hey, I brought you in on this date. We keep a log of that, and I showed you, these 3 clips of what you need to work at. Yet you're not telling me you realize that. So, and everybody's different. Some kids are different how coachable they are. I think that's part of just communication, and what we want to do as a staff, and make sure our guys understand what they need to get better at. But again, if they lack that accountability, they're never going to get better at it. I'll tell you an interesting story. This was a few years back. I'm not going to say the player's name, so but it definitely happened. I had a kid come in, and I had already ahead of time written on a 3x5 index card and put it in an envelope for a little theatrical, part. I had written what I thought were his 3 things to get better at. And I brought him in, and he went through it. And I don't remember exactly what he had, but it was something like, I got to work on my skating. I got to work on my stick handling. I got to work on my defensive play. He had like 4 things, and I got to become a better athlete. And I said, all right, there's an envelope on the table in front of you. I said, open the envelope. I put it down for you and I prioritized it. And the first thing on the list was accountability. And what I really felt, everything that he said he had to get better at, I agreed with, but he wasn't accountable. He wasn't self-accountable. He didn't really believe in that. So if he doesn't really believe in it, we're not going to get to point B. We're at point A. We're not going to get there. And he's told me, this is years ago. He's told me years later that was a real eye opener for him, because he didn't have accountability on his list. And I'd already had the kid for a year. I'd had him for a year. We talked about accountability. It kept kind of going to one ear out the other. And anyway, the next 2 years, he was unbelievable for him. He had a great career. He's really successful in life. And I feel like that was a hockey coach lesson. That was a hockey lesson. But really, more than that, was a life lesson that he's done and taken now. He's really successful in life. And that's part of what we're doing here. We're trying to win hockey games for sure. I'm trying to get all my kids to graduate on time, which we do.
mhm.
But a lot of what we're teaching them are life lessons.
And I think that's really important, is the life lesson aspect of it. Within sports, sometimes people forget how skills and different soft skills or hard skills can transfer into your life, everyday life, whether that's a career after sports, whether that's within your community, whether that be family, friendships, giving back. For you, how have you tried to, like you said, there's a whole other aspect of sports that transcends into that community and builds men for the long term. How have you tried to look at certain situations and said, yeah, this is a hockey lesson, but really you need this skill for life, and I need to teach you this for life.
Yeah, I mean, we do it a lot. Like I'll use the phrase a lot with my guys, like COA, just cover your ass. Oh, sorry, COA, CYA. Yeah, you got it wrong. Cover your ass. So, and I'll sometimes I'll tell them, like, there might be something simple like, hey, the shuttle was late getting me up here, so I was late to practice. Well, send one of the coaches a text. Coach, the shuttle's late. I got no problem. When I don't know where you are, I got a problem. And we'll talk it through. And I'll use that example a lot. But it's the same thing when you're dealing with your boss down the road, when you're out in the real world and you got a job and you got to, if something's going wrong, like don't just spring it on your boss at the end because people don't like that. You got to cover your ass as you go. So I think there's a lot of little things that people learn as we go through hockey. I mean, this is an elite level. It's a really high level. There's a lot of demands on their time. We expect them to be a good student. We had like a 3.7 GPA last semester. A lot of my guys graduate in 3 years, get their MBA in one. So we do put a lot on them from an academic standpoint, but we want them to be great, and everything goes back to my commitment to excellence. But you just got to stay on it. And like I said, there's a lot of life lessons. I don't always connect the dots on the life lessons, but that's definitely one where I talk about, hey, you're going to work for someone someday, and you better CYA, and because stuff's going to happen when your boss is going to be happy, and if you're keeping them in the loop the whole way, hey, there's supply chain issues or there's this problem, whatever, you're less likely to get in trouble at the end of the whole sequence.
And I love that. And it's so true of if you keep people in the loop from the start, whether it's good or bad of how things are progressing, it's a lot harder to have someone thrown and be like, whoa, what's happening? Because at least now others are aware. And especially, when that can be affecting a whole team, there's a lot of moving pieces, right? That player doesn't show up on time. That might mean someone else's practice is affected, or something happens with the game, or even in your career, you miss a deadline. Oh, it's an hour late, but now the next person might have to stay later at work to make sure that the deadline's
Right.
still met. So being able to connect that and say, hey, listen, this is what's going on. I can send you half of it, or I can do this, really helps. One thing I wanted to touch upon, and you started it, so it was a great segment into it, is the fact that you really make it a point to have excellence on and off the ice with your guys. Like you said, education. You guys continuously have one of the higher GPAs within teams, and your graduation rate. I think this year there's multiple players off your team who are graduating with multiple degrees at the same time.
Yes.
And graduating early. How do you kind of demonstrate through your own leadership the importance of that academic side and not just playing on the ice?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the easiest way to get through is just recruit good students coming in. Like that's probably the simplest way. But we have some guys that we take here that are they're fine. They're A's and B's, maybe the odd C here in high school. They're not 3.7 students, and then they get here and they look around the locker room as freshmen, or first years is the phrase we have to use now. And they see other guys that are really focusing on getting good grades. And that's part of our culture. And they're like, oh, it's okay to get straight A's, or we want to get straight A's. And they will put a little bit extra. And I think that's part of our culture in our locker room. It's no different than having a great culture in the workplace. It could be, just having the work ethic and wanting to succeed, or maybe it's just being selfless. We talk a lot about being selfless on our team, making sacrifices for the betterment of the team. And if you do that, you'll get rewarded at the end. The one thing we do a lot as a staff is we always try to recognize those selfless moments. So whether it's a shot block, negating an icing, a small little detail they execute on, screening the goalie is a huge selfless move because you don't get a point on the play, right? Everybody wants their points, the goal and assist. Usually when you screen the goalie, you don't get a point. So we make sure, every Monday we show those, I call it a net anchor, those great net anchor clips. And then that guy gets that player gets a little reaffirmation that, hey, this is what I need to do to be successful. And it's okay to be selfless. And when you're selfless, we'll get our reward down the road. And for us, we won, multiple in-season tournaments. We won a regional, we won the regular season championship, we won a national championship. And a lot of that was because we have guys playing team first.
And I want to talk about some of those moments, specifically with you, that have really continued throughout your career. So you have broken records throughout your career, including winning the national title, which just happened, which, again, such a history moment. If you haven't watched that goal in 10 seconds into overtime, don't blink, turn on the TV and watch it again, because it was funny in the moment. Some people were like, wait, we just missed it. Why is the buzzer going off? I'm like, your head was turned the wrong way. It happened so quickly. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But you have that, being coach of the year 5 times throughout your career, winning 6 Cleary Cups in 10 seasons, which for some people who don't know, that has only happened one other time within a 10-year record within the ECAC, as well as winning the championship. And that's just a few. I mean, the list could keep going. What is the mindset you bring, not just every day, but every year, from winning those titles and making those impacts in people's life, but also the community as you're growing? I mean, you've been a coach for 29 seasons now, so your community involvement has really spanned your career.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the end, like our slogan this year for our team was "Embrace the grind," and and we did a really good job of that. Like I'm not gonna lie, like we weren't the most talented team in the country. We weren't. There were a lot more talented teams than us. We certainly had enough talent to win. We had a lot of talent, but we had to find ways to grind out wins and just we'd play teams we knew were better than, but it's hard. It's hard to win at this level with the goaltending, and you get some puck luck, you get good puck luck, you get bad puck luck. But we always talk about grinding out wins, and we did that all year. Obviously, we're 34-4 and found a way to do that. But we really had to embrace it. And I don't think it's any different, whether it's in game or it's in the weight room or just in your life in general. Like you need to embrace it. Like there's things you don't want to do in life, right? There just is. Like I'm already, I have 4 kids. I'm trying to teach my kids about that stuff. And it's just a lot easier to get through life successfully and enjoy it if you embrace it instead of complain about it. And there are, as we all know, Olivia, you know this, there's a lot of people that just complain. They complain about everything. And it's like, and those people usually aren't successful. I just feel like, you're gonna have to grind some stuff out in life, and you're better off just attacking it, and you'll come out, you'll be better in the long run for it.
And I think that's really important to understand is you can't just complain about something, and you have to grind it out no matter what it is. Nothing's going to be handed to you. So one thing in the beauty of this podcast, and why one of the main reasons I created this show, was so that people can hear other people's stories and know they're not alone, and no one's perfect. All those, as I call them, the A-list moments you see on social media is not everyday life. Everyone has the hurdles and the bumps that they have to get through to get their goal. For you, one of the great things you have built is really the community around you, even within the players that have played and now, no longer play for the team. What is the importance for you to not just build a strong team for now, but a strong community of alumni guys for years to come? And how do you kind of make sure they stay involved and the guys feel that presence who are currently on the team?
Yeah, I mean, we want to have when we do have a strong alumni network for hockey players. Certainly what we just did is is great for it. But I mean, I've been here 29 years. There's definitely players get out and they just drift away, or for whatever reason, or they're not in the loop as much. And I'd love to keep everybody in the loop, but you're busy in life, they're busy in life, and sometimes it just gets hard. I will say with this national championship, we definitely brought a bunch of players back into the loop, which was great. And there was a crazy, I don't know what the final number was, but it was a crazy amount of people that came to Tampa and watched, came for the semis, came for the finals. A bunch of people just came just for the final game.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really cool to see, and it'll be fun next year. We'll raise the banner against Boston College October 7th, and I'm sure we'll have a ton of our alums will come back for that moment. That's a great reconnect moment for us. We certainly won't have our current pro players because they'll be playing. But I do my best. Joe Dume also played. He does a great job with the alums and trying to keep everybody connected. But there's certainly kids that just drift off. And then every now and again, you kind of try to bring them back in, and you try to do our best. But this was a galvanizing moment. I don't think just for Quinnipiac hockey, but I think for the university. It brought alumni of all shades and colors together, and it's just been an awesome moment for Quinnipiac.
And I 100% agree with that. And it's so interesting being there myself, right? And seeing the alumni involvement and the stories. Everyone has stories of their time and the players. And I remember, from my perspective, watching you guys right before you made it to the Frozen Four. And I was texting one of my friends, Joey Fiala, who had played with the team when I managed. And we're texting during the game. And I'm like, okay, so I have a good feeling this is going to happen. You flying out? Are you and we're having the text conversation of, if this is about to happen, what is the next step? Like, who is going? I'm like, come on, the whole team's got to go.
Yeah.
And the funny part is, kind of like you said, being there for that Michigan game. And the moment after the win, and you're back in that championship game again. The feeling of the alumni of we are here, we are proud, we are Quinnipiac. Not just we're here for the hockey game, we are Quinnipiac. And it just felt unreal. And then to get a lot of alumni who ended up, you look at the alumni Facebook group, people going right after the win, the chat's going off of okay, we have to figure out flights. We're coming down. Where can we stay? What can we do? But also the fact, and it really speaks to the hockey community altogether, is I sat right next to the bench for both games. And right next to me during the first game was Michigan fans who'd been a part of the Michigan program. And so it was interesting talking to them, and we were very respectful for both teams. And Michigan obviously ended up losing. And we turned to them and said, so are you going to be back here for Saturday night's game? Because a lot of people end up leaving and then not necessarily staying for the championship. And they looked at us and go, we're blue and gold all the way through. So yes, the character that Quinnipiac has showed, we will be here cheering for Quinnipiac. And I think that really demonstrates the character that's built within hockey as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's a great, there's certainly, I don't think that many people thought we were going to beat Michigan, and not that many thought we were going to beat Minnesota. There's certainly enough. I tell you, my boys in the locker room did. But there were also a lot of people that don't like Minnesota, don't like Michigan, that were rooting for us, right? The North Dakota fans and Boston College and other teams. But just to jump back on you, you mentioned Joe Fiala. Joe's a great example of, a high character player that played for me. He's a great person. He's a connector. He connects people.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be around him. I love Joe. I've always been impressed with him. He's a great alum now. Sometimes when I need to reach out to guys and get guys together for something, it's usually Fiala and KJ.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two. I have other guys too, but those are two I know are connected. If I tell them, they're going to bring in Shuddy, they're going to bring in the Cliftons, they're going to bring in everybody. But if you had mentioned Joe's name, and he's, he was just such a great kid, and it was just a special moment. I really feel. I'm trying to think if Joe was there afterwards. After the game and we won, I had to do media, and I had to go into my team. They dumped me with a water bucket. They do that whole thing. Which, that's how naive I was. I didn't even know it was coming. I should have known it was coming, but I didn't. And then I actually had to change my shirt. Luckily, I had extra clothes at the rink because I was soaked. And Joe Dume came and said, hey, there's some alums waiting for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is 30 minutes later. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, there's a whole crew of them. They're not leaving the rink until you come out and say hi to them. And I went on, pretty sure Joe was there, and KJ and John Kelly. And I went out, and it was just awesome. We're hugging and dancing. And that was one of my favorite moments of the whole national championship, to share that with those, I don't know, 15, 17, it might've been more, 18, 20. I don't even know how many guys were there. But that was fun. I actually have a video of it. That to me was really enjoyable. And, Soren Janssen was crying, and I always remember that. And just the whole thing was chaos. But it's all good. And, such a great moment just for our current players, our alums, and even our Quinnipiac alums, right? There's so many people, they're proud to, to be an alum, and it's just an awesome moment for us.
And, it's funny. I remember that night, and that night, was a long night, and it was a very emotional night at the same time, right? You've the energy of going into the game, right? And you're amped up, and as a player, as a coach, as part of the Quinnipiac community in general, you're amped up for the game. You're nervous, right? There's a whole another level of nervousness when you're actually playing and not just a fan watching. And then you win, and there's the excitement, the joy, all hits at once, right? All those feelings. And then you had press, you have every little moment. And like you said, you always try to savor that. And then you have the celebration with the team after, which was to be there when the team can really just come in with the families and everything like that was such a joyous moment and celebration in itself, where it's, I was there, you were there, you had the past president, the current president, you had the alumni team, you had the families of everyone. And it was great talking to everyone and being like, okay, so like, how were you associated with the team? How were you
Yeah.
associated?
Yeah.
But going back to that, those raw emotions, how did you handle that as the night was going on? Because it was a very long night.
Yeah. I would say I didn't handle my emotions very well. So, we win and it was like chaos on the bench and you're overwhelmed and I'm crying. And then you got to shake the other coach's hand, all those coaches. And then you got to do that ESPN interview right away.
Mhm.
Kobe Cohen was the interviewer, was right there. And I was a mess emotionally. And I really didn't want to do it. I just wanted to go hug my team and kind of hide in the pile and cry a little bit. But he's right there with the microphone. And so I didn't feel like I could decline the interview. I don't think you can do that.
I don't think you can.
No, I don't think you're allowed to. So then I'm there and I'm crying. Oh my God. Anyway, so I don't think I handled it well, but that's okay. Everybody seems to be fine with it.
No, I
But
think
still, it's been,
in my personal opinion, I watched it. People have
yeah,
talked to me about it. And I was like, that is what you want from a leader, because the pure emotion and joy and just like, wow, this really just happened, and you asking for a hug just shows the level of commitment and how much you stand by the guys. And I think
yeah,
that's why everyone, didn't think twice about it, because everyone was like, that's a true leader. That's a true coach, where he's so wrapped up in what just happened and wanting to be with the team that he doesn't care who's watching. Like, this is for
yeah,
him and the team.
yeah. At the time, I didn't care who was watching. Now, of course, my buddies, I'm getting some pretty good ribbing right now from everybody, right? I think they made up T-shirts in the office here. I think the women's staff made up T-shirts. I need a hug with my face on it. And, okay. So I'm gonna probably hear this for the next 20 years. But anyway, it's all listen. In the end, it's all good. And but getting back to your emotion question, like I was just a wreck. I mean, it's still been. I think it's been just a little over 3 weeks. And I still, because I've been going full bore with this media blitz and everything that we're doing, which is great. I'm not complaining. It's awesome, and I'm trying to attack all of it. But I really haven't been able to sit down and just relax and enjoy it. That will come. We'll get to that point. We're not quite there yet, but yeah, it was hard. It was a tough 29 years. My early years, like I had to grind. It was, we practiced at midnight. I'm not getting paid any money, and which is fine. It's all worked out for me now. But I really had to grind in my early years to get where we are now. And even now, I feel like there's days you just got to grind. Like you got to go in. Like it's easy to take the easy way out. And hey, I'm not going to make that extra phone call, or I'm not going to do that extra 25 minutes of watching video on getting ready for Cornell. Like we've already played them. I know what it is. Well, but hey, I need to watch these guys. I need to see what there might be something you pick up. And I'm always like doing extra stuff. All I need is that one little nugget, just something small. If I spend an extra hour, and I just need, and maybe I don't get it, but if I get it, maybe it helps me win. And I did put a lot of extra time into getting ready for Michigan and Minnesota, and I did pick up some things. Like for example, Michigan Penn State, that was the Elite Eight game. Michigan won that game. I think I watched that game like 6 times. And I got to like the sixth time, and I'm like, really? Am I going to get anything out of this? But I did. I picked up a little thing on what I felt was like a pattern on how he wanted to run his bench. And, did it help? I'm not sure, but I think it did. It made me more confident going into the game, and my staff's the same way. So, a lot of it's just, trying to find a way to grind it out. And I certainly, as I already stated, I didn't control my emotions that well, and it's okay. It's fine. We got a national championship, and we're excited, and we move on.
I think what a key point there too is the grind. That extra watch, right? You're talking about that sixth time watching the game film. Are you really going to get anything out of it? No matter what you're doing while achieving a goal, sometimes it's that extra push that maybe someone else isn't going to do that's going to make the difference. You never know. So yeah, it could be an extra 15, 20 minutes, whatever it might be. But that one extra push can lead down a road where you weren't even expecting it. For you, Rand, what has been, you just completed season 29 of your career coaching. What has been the moment of, if you can look back to yourself as you were entering Quinnipiac 29 seasons ago, the one thing you would tell yourself back then?
Back then? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's a really good question. Um, oh God, there's so many things.
Tell us, multiple. You're allowed
Yeah, we
multiple.
all learn as we go. I mean, it just pops in my head now. It's just the first thing that pops in my head. Um, and this is very tactical and very coaching based, but I went to that 113 in roughly the 2008 year, and I should have gone to it earlier. It's been a great weapon for Quinnipiac. Like we're we are the best team in the country at it. It's a great talent equalizer. That would be one thing. Another thing would be, I don't remember the exact years, but I think in my early years I was a hard ass, and that's what I thought a coach had to be, and you yell and whatever. And at some point I softened a lot, I mellowed a lot, and now it's more positive, and I really don't yell a lot. I probably would have done that a lot earlier too, because I just don't think players respond well back then or even today. And again, kids have changed a little bit, but they don't respond that well to that. That type of coaching. And it's funny because that's what a lot of coaches do. That's just I grew up with coaches like that. They yell a lot and whatever, and you're like, I don't want to get yelled at, so I better do this right. And I'm really from the opposite of it. It's like, hey, like it's a two-way street. Let's have good communication. It's not that we don't hold kids accountable, because we do. Like I'll bring them in and say, hey, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't do this the other night. Your energy level was low, and that's why you're not playing Saturday night. So it's still account. I'm not yelling at him, and he's
Mm-hmm.
looking at me. Okay, I understand. Do you understand what you need to do to get back in the lineup next week? Yes, I do. So I think it's still hard because you have to sit kids once in a while. You have to cut a kid. Like it's hard to do that stuff. It's really hard. You can't play every player, and this isn't youth hockey. We do have guys that play more than others, and as a staff, we have no issue with being cutthroat. We have to. You have to be cutthroat to win, but you can do it in a better manner and treat that player with respect. They might not like what you're saying to them, but at least they respect that you're telling them why you're not playing, and you're not screaming and yelling at them. That would probably be another thing I would change looking back on my early years.
And let's kind of reverse that. So, again, you just finished your 29th season. As you progress and think about, the next year, the next 5 years, and once you've retired, what is the legacy you hope to leave behind? And the things now that you've hit a national championship win and you've had all these records that you've achieved throughout your career, and before that, because you played before that, for you, what is the thing you would tell yourself today to keep in mind for future seasons, as well as that legacy you want to leave behind?
Yeah, it's a good question, Olivia. And from a legacy standpoint, like I don't act like that. I don't operate. So I don't say act. I don't operate like that. I don't look at when I'm done Quinnipiac or when I'm done my coaching career, I want to look back and have these things. I don't operate that. I stay in the moment. I stay in the process. That stuff will all take care of itself. When
Mm-hmm.
I'm finally whenever sitting in a rocking chair, then I'll look back on all the things that we did. To me, it's about the process. I'm certainly proud of something that I'm proud. Like we want championships, we want those things, but I'm proud of the young men that we produce from Quinnipiac. Like we make them better people. We do. We set them up for success in life, whether it's hockey or more probably in the real world. Like we set them up for success. Listen, if I'm out there in the business world and running a Fortune 500 company, they should be outside my door lining up to hire my guys whenever, because a lot of them want to go play pro hockey. But these
Mm-hmm.
guys are going to be successful. They're great teammates. They're selfless. They all have work ethics. They know time management. They have so many things that are going to translate into success in the real world, whatever occupation they decide to go in. And again, a lot of our guys do have, when they finally their pro careers done, they do have multiple job opportunities, and it's pretty rare for one of my hockey alums to not be successful in life. It's actually very rare. It's actually shocking to me, which is great. That's what we want. But everything that we do here is we set them up for success in life. We set them up for success while they're here. So I don't really look at what's my legacy. I get asked that question once in a while. I never think about that, and I'm not going to think about it. I'm more about what's in front of me. What am I doing tomorrow? What's next? Even right now, after I get off this call with you, after this podcast, I'm like, all right, I gotta get these end of the year meetings done with these guys. I gotta start getting focused on next year.
Mhm.
We're renovating our locker room. We just did a big fundraiser for that. So I just had a meeting on that. How are we gonna get our locker room ready? So I'm already, ready to move on and transition. But I'm never about legacy. That'll come later. That'll take care of itself, I always feel.
And I think that's so important to keep in mind. You don't have to think about your legacy. It can be just as important to think about the here and now and never touch upon the legacy you believe, because you can end up leaving a better legacy when you don't think about the impact you're making on others. And I think to touch upon something you said is really the character and the guys being successful after the career. We'll talk about Joey Fiala because we've already talked about him and everything, and we'll use him as an example. I had a conversation with Joey recently, and we were chatting, and I said, I could tell when you were a player that no matter what you were going to do, you were going to be successful. And he asked me how I knew that, and I said, well, at the same time as working at the Giants. So I was at the pro level in NFL and I was with the team. And I said, Joey, whenever I walked in the room, now, mind you, for our listeners who haven't seen me stand up yet, I am 5 foot. So I'm a very small human. I'm a small human being. And I'm carrying food in for the guys. And after a game and, everyone's hungry and they want their meal, Joey would be the first guy to get up and walk over and say, hey, Liv, do you need help putting that out? How can I help? Who can I, you want me? And he would turn around and ask 2 other guys. He's like, guys, come over. Can you get that out so we can, help her move along
Yeah.
instead of us just bugging her? And I said, it's not just who you are on the ice player wise or on the field throwing a ball or whatever it might be. It's how you interact with everyone around you, making everyone feel like they're united and they're part of the process and they put forth effort to the end goal is what's going to make someone then go turn around and go to bat for you. Work with you and want to stay connected and everything along the way. And I think one of the great things you as a coach and the guys who are older exemplify throughout the team and throughout the years is saying it isn't just about what's on the ice. It's everything you do off the ice that shows who your character is and who you are as a person. Because asking for help, I've had guys ask me, hey, I'm having trouble in this class. You're taking the class. Can we do it? And everything like that. That's showing who you are. That's being vulnerable. And that's part of excelling in life is all those moving pieces as well.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned Joe, and he's gonna listen to this. Boy, he's gonna have a big head,
I'm about to text him and give him the heads up of
oh,
hey.
the boys are gonna have a field day with this. But and I'll just because we talked about Joe. I mentioned KJ. I remember Tommy Shutt. Just those 3 guys are on the top of my head right now, and they were here when you were here. They're all great teammates. They're great teammates. They're selfless. They're good people. They're willing to do little things to help other people. And I think when you do that, you find success from that. That's really what it is. And we stress that and we teach that. And guys learn from that. And hey, I do these little things well. I lock in on details, and I will get rewarded with individual and team accomplishments. I think if you're so focused on, I just want to have individual success, it sometimes doesn't come for you. If you go into a
Mhm.
game going, hey, I want to score 3 goals tonight, you're probably not going to score at all and have a bad night. Instead of, you know what, I'm just going to focus on my first shift. I want to get my legs going. I want to have my compete level ready. I'm going to lock in on details. We have an identity that we play to at Quinnipiac. If I play hard and play to that identity, I'll get rewarded. And if you do that, at the end of that, you probably have your 1 or 2 or 3 goals, or you get your win. And that's a big thing we talk about, which is more about process.
And I love that. And I think that's a great way to start wrapping up the show is thinking about that process. And that process plays a role in the end goal and the end accomplishments, and then being able to be recognized for those as well. Thank you, Coach Rand Pecknold, for all of your insight today.
Well, thank you for having me on. It was fun to see you, and I didn't see you in Tampa, but thanks for going. I know we had people everywhere, and after the park we won it. Everybody was at American Social, and I didn't the trophy, and
Yeah,
it was chaos.
we had 3 seconds together at 3 a.m. where I said hi. You're like, hi, and I'm like,
yeah. It was quick.
You're just too wrapped in the moment. We'll talk later. I stood
there with the trophy, and the trophy's really heavy. and I must have taken selfies for an hour straight. And I was like, can we set this on a table? Because it's like 60 pounds. But it was all good. It was great. And we appreciate that you came. And it's fun. It was fun for Bobcat Nation. And I keep saying over and over again, like you can't put a value on what we just did for Quinnipiac.
Yeah, for sure. And, I was definitely there. People were like, we're all taking pictures with Rand. You should get your picture. And I'm like, I can get my picture later. Rand needs a break. Rand needs to enjoy the moment.
I didn't get a break. Thank you, though, but I didn't get a break.
So here are a few key takeaways from today's conversation. Savor the moment and all those small moments while you're going through the process, as well as character's culture. Your culture is your character at the same time. So be a part of the culture. It will build your character in the long run, as well as sometimes you have to be selfless to meet an end goal and be part of the team's goal and achievements. It is okay to be selfless at times, and it can end up being more rewarding and fulfilling when you have those moments. As well as, and one of my favorites that Coach Rand said was embrace the grind. Work through it, be a part of it, embrace it, and at the end of the day, all those little building blocks and that grind that you've worked through will show and exemplify. This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, head coach Rand Pecknold. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.